Hello, hello, hello. We are back. We are back. Let me see if she is coming on. This is part 2. So, we are talking about trauma and Black psychology. We've talked about all of the different trauma that we have dealt with, from slavery to institutionalized systems that have kept us in constant states of trauma, oppression, and the different things that have happened, such as mass incarceration, the pipeline to prison system, the different systems that were created, such as welfare. And once the welfare system was created and Black people had access to it, one of the rules was that Black men, adult Black male, could not be in the home. So we talked about all of those things. Now we're going into injustices that have happened within our medical system. And so I'm waiting for her to come on. Meantime, in between time, you all need to read this book. This book right here is deep. It's really deep. And it talks about a lot of things that we have had to go through as a culture. Also, I recommend reading the 13th. Well, not reading it, watching the 13th on Netflix. That shows the whole, it talks about slavery, and it talks about the slavery loophole that was put into the 13th Amendment, so that once Black people are considered criminals or go to jail for something, then they are used as free labor. So free labor, they become slaves again. So go check that out. We are back. All right.
I had to go find the charger because I was like, wait a minute, the phone's not charging like I needed to charge. Come on now, we're not done with conversating.
This conversation was about to get deep.
I know.
Let me go out before they kick us off so we can get this one. Because I think this is one. Actually, I was actually reading this earlier. Girl, you had me ahead reading. I'm like, let me read, So I was looking at what was this article? Let me pull it up. What I do with it? It was talking about mental health. Where is it? I got all of these things open. Anywho, so it was talking about the experience of being Black in America and how there are all of these different experiences, and we have shared experiences, from family to religion to all of these different things. But we also have shared traumas, from slavery to racism, inequality in services and healthcare. We also have trauma with seeing people get killed, because a lot of Black people that live in the inner city see this on a regular basis, and they winded up becoming desensitized, which is another form of processing trauma.
Yeah.
What else was it? So they talked about, where is it? I kind of made some notes. So the Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health said Black adults living below the poverty line are 2 times as likely to report serious psychological distress than those who are financially secured. Then they started talking about despite the needs of Black people that have like different mental health issues, only 1 in 3 who need those healthcare services actually receive it. And I was like, what the what? And then it said they are less likely to receive consistent care.
Yep.
Less frequent to be included in research, but we know that, even though we always a part of the experiment.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. More likely to use the ER or primary care rather than mental health specialists, which is very true, because I would say I've done those things myself. 63% of Blacks believe that mental health conditions are a sign of weakness.
Yep.
And that is ingrained, embedded in our culture. We look at people who go to therapists as crazy, those who work through or do meditation. Now they're insane. They're different. They're trying to be like white people. They're trying to whatever. So then it talked about us not discussing mental health due to how we would be perceived. So obviously I don't care about how I'm being perceived, but whatever. Because it's helping somebody. So,
it is.
I don't care. Then it talked about Blacks seeking support from churches rather than actually going to therapists.
Yeah.
So now I was thinking about that because most Black churches don't have therapy. But when I started going to this interracial church, they actually offer therapy. They believe in therapy. And they have therapy in different forms. Marriage. They have one for certain traumas. They have one called Heart to Heart. Yeah, they have.
There's one for grief.
They had one that I actually went through. It was not called therapy though. This one was it connects the spiritual, because everything goes back to, being biblically based. But it talks about your life experiences. You talk about what you've been through. You talk about why you do what you do. What God has to say about the things that have happened to you. Who God says you are outside of those things that have happened to you. I thought that was actually cool. At first, I wasn't down with it. Like, I was like,
really?
So I'm about to sit in front, because it's not one-on-one. I'm like, I'm about to sit in front of these people and do what now? But for some reason, I felt like I really needed it, so I just did it anyway. And I was like, let me just see what it's about. And they come with this workbook, and they're like, oh, we're happy to have you. They're like all excited. I'm like, I don't do happy well.
A little too much perky for me.
Right. I'm like, calm down. This is the end of the night. Pipe down.
Right. Simmer down now. Simmer down.
But when I got through, I didn't do the last one where they do like this whole group thing, because I think it conflicted with a residency that I had to do for school. So I winded up not going for the last session that they had. There was like a group, like a team building group type of thing, but I was there for everything else. And when I tell you that it made me realize some things about myself, it really did. And I feel like it's necessary, but Black churches, for some reason, don't think it is. Whatever. They need to, because a lot of
They
black
need
people are
to.
jacked up out here. You would
Yes.
have less killing. Number one, if people check they mental.
And perhaps we can bring back the family unit, because some of the mental bleeds into the family unit situation or the lack thereof.
Right.
So
And
that's why this is a two-parter, because the first part we talked about trauma. And this is where we're going to talk about the Black psychology, because this is the part that we as a people are missing. Now, I'm going to just explain for a second what Black psychology is, because it is not, I'd say 20 years ago, wasn't necessarily a recognized form of psychology. We have abnormal psychology that talks about like severe mental illness. And then we have like, you know, health psychology that talks about like holistic medicine, like meditations and, you know, visualizations and that type of thing. And then we have industrial organizational, which talks about basically human resources and how people function in the workplace. We have social psychology that talks about how people behave in social situations. Just like, okay, for example, let's talk about the trauma for a second. Social situations, social psychology. You've some stories that typical psych students learned in this class is there was a woman who was in an apartment building. She was attacked and murdered, and people heard her screaming, but nobody did anything because everybody assumed somebody else heard and would call the police. So because everybody assumed that, and that's actually a social theory, because everybody assumed that, nobody called the police. So she could have been saved if somebody had done something, but they all thought, well, somebody else will take care of it, I'll stay out of it. The social experiment of, if you go, and this works each and every time, if you go into an elevator and face the back of it, once people are getting on, they'll look around and kind of be like, why is she standing in the opposite direction? And they will all eventually join. All because social psychology teaches us people don't like to not be a part of the crowd. So if somebody's doing something, we're going to join in and do it too. Another theory, mass hysteria. Look at the pandemic we just had, right? I mean, we're still in it. We're all kind of on the tail end of it, it seems.
I don't know. Look like it's going to be a second wave.
It might be second wave because, you know, folks don't get viruses mutate, but I'm going to let that go because that's biology. We're not talking about that right now. Mass hysteria, when you have one person panic and then another person panic and then another person, it creates a domino effect of panic. Then everybody.
That wasn't on tissue paper.
Yes.
I was like, so is the tissue paper?
You know why?
Somebody?
You know why? You know who makes our tissue paper? Think about it. Where does our tissue paper come from? China. So people panicked and thought, well, if they shut down China, they may shut down, you know, production of toilet tissue, which means we're not going to get any. We have American companies right here that make toilet tissue, but nobody wants to buy from those because China is cheap. Everything we get from them is cheaply made.
Well,
so
they get these reparations passed through. I don't know if
Stop.
China gonna be doing nothing for us, because you know, let me tell you, they trying to these Republicans are trying. Okay, first off, they trying to get rid of Fauci. They trying to get him to boot because
yeah, they are
like he knew the whole time, but whatever. I figured he knew. Because I'm like, you know, there's too much information that nobody else knows except for you. So you something you did. But
yeah,
not only that, they were talking about having China to pay reparations to America.
That's
and
not
I was
happen.
like, if you force China, because all they would have to do is do the same thing Trump did. Like he did this whole some type of levy type of situation, and it was like real crazy for a minute, and then all of a sudden we got coronavirus. Y'all take note of that one because he was doing some craziness, and it was like next thing you know, COVID is here. But I'm like, you do realize that if y'all ask them for reparations, everything that's coming over here is gonna be shut down.
Yep.
So that means your hair industry, because a lot of those products come from over there. Your hair, your nail industry, all beauty, a lot of stuff comes from China.
Oh
My
no.
lashes, my vendor is in China.
I mean,
This nail powder, this overlay, China.
curls. Oh, right. A lot of Black women gonna be hurting real quick.
Makeup,
Oh,
a lot of makeup come from China.
yeah. Yes. But see, being on
So
Instagram, I have
you gonna be
found
naked out
companies
here,
that
girl.
no, no. Well, see, that's the thing. You gotta pay attention. You gotta
I'm
prepare
joking.
for
I'm
stuff like that.
joking. But you know, a lot of
You're
clothes come
joking.
from China. Rainbow. I ain't been in Rainbow since I was 20 something. But them clothes come from China. Them
Yeah.
China made clothes. So you gonna have a lot of
Check the
people out here
labels.
hurting.
Check the labels. China, Indonesia,
Yep.
Taiwan. A lot of
Yep.
these places are where we get our clothes from. So if something happens and they shut down, made in America, we've got companies that make stuff here, but they don't fit all of us. Just gonna put that out there. Wait, we just dropped that right there. But getting back to the topic, Black psychology is something that's not as well known as those other types of psychology, and they don't necessarily have those theories because Black psychology is, well, this website, and this is psychology.iresearchnet.com. They it's categorized as psychology, counseling psychology, multicultural counseling, and Black psychology. So this is an emerging discipline broadly defined as an evolving system of knowledge concerning elements of human nature, specifically study of the experience and behavior of people of African descent or Black populations. Historically, Black psychology stems from African philosophy, yet early perspectives in the United States focused on reacting to Western psychology's characterization of Blacks as psychologically inferior. And this is what I was saying before about us being seen as intellectually and psychologically inferior. Like we can't handle what our white counterparts can. So this class of psychology deals with psychology basically from a Black perspective, how we see things, how our culture is affected by things, and how what happens to other people is influenced by our culture, and that's how we take things in. So let's
So
start
our
with,
lived experiences there.
yes, our lived experiences and how we relate to other people because of those lived experiences. So let's talk about the church, for example. One of the biggest reasons why Black people don't believe in therapy is because we have always relied on God. Now, let me put a disclaimer in there. I am by no means saying God should not be in the picture. I am a spiritual person. I was raised in the church, went to church with my mom's mother every Sunday, went on church trips every summer. Like, church was a thing. God's always been a thing.
You wasn't in
But
vacation Bible school though. I ain't see you in the pew now.
no, I was there. I was there bright and early.
Oh my
I was in the kids'
goodness.
choir. Like,
I'm
there were
joking. Girl, that reminded
prerequisites.
me of Big Mama bringing us to vacation Bible school with them doggone white box lunches.
Oh,
Oh Lord.
oh,
We had
y'all
them
had that.
white box lunches.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen
I'm
those.
like them
I know what
doggone
those
that
are about.
doggone government food.
Yeah.
The bologna, you got to peel the
The,
doggone
blo-
red off.
and then that was it. The juice in the plastic cup. Yeah. Yeah. I remember those.
No, we was at vacation Bible schools.
And it was, and so religion and God and spirituality has always been a major part of our culture. Even back in Africa, spirituality, it may not be God as we know it, but spirituality was still a big thing there. It still is a big thing there. I mean, a lot of them have converted to Christianity, but tribe-wise, spirituality was a thing. There are African gods, you know, just like there are gods in other cultures. So we have always relied on, especially in hard times. So think about, let's go back to slavery. It always goes back to slavery. Those Negro spirituals, that's what those came from. We had to sing. It was a way of relaying messages to each other. It was a way of uplifting our spirits in hard times. It was a way of remembering no matter what, God is always there and always will be there, despite whatever else is going on. So we are conditioned in a good way to rely on our faith. And that's not a bad thing. But when we start to talk about mental illness in its true form, so actual diagnoses, anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, God can only do so much there. You know, now we're talking about science, which we all know the fight between theology and science, like they're not supposed to go together. But if we truly acknowledge God for how we were taught God is everything, God is the end and the beginning, the Alpha and the Omega, then everything in between has to be God too, including science, right? So if we're talking about chemical imbalances,
I think that it does include, okay, so religion includes science, but science cannot include religion. That's how
science doesn't want to include religion because science only looks at facts. Every form of science looks at facts, and that's the problem.
So
that's the problem.
Most scientists don't believe in the creation theory.
No, they believe
in evolution. They believe in, So it's like one can fit into the other, but the other doesn't fit into that one.
But you know what? In my little brain, I've made the whole thing fit.
It does, but I'm saying when you look at it,
yeah, it's two separate. It's two separate things.
Yeah, scientists are not going when it comes to religion because there's no real factual basis for it. You're believing in something you can't see. But in my mind, I'm like, but there is history that tracks Jesus. There's history that tracks disciples. There's history that tracks his movement. Like, there's actual history that you want to neglect, but you throw the whole thing away and say it don't exist because the existence of God has never been proven.
And right, because in science, when there's a theory, the theory is tested until results are given, and then those results are taken for whatever they are. You can't test the theory of God and Jesus and disciples and come up with concrete evidence, and that's why they have a problem with that. But in all fairness, and you know, you're gonna be mad when I say this. There's a difference between. It was a pause. It was a long pause because
I'm like, oh, what you about to say?
Two things. Number one, there's a difference between spirituality and religion. Religion is doctrine, right? So religion is man's view of God and then creating laws based on that view.
Yeah.
Good example, you had Catholicism. Martin Luther didn't like that, didn't believe it was okay. It was too confining, too restricting. So what did he do? Create Lutheranism. Doctrine. It's just a difference in doctrine. Spirituality, however, is having the faith, having the belief,
and having that connection directly to God.
And having the connection, yes. God and God's people. Different. You have spirituality in religion, but you don't necessarily have to have religion and spirituality.
Yeah, I do believe that. So I'm not going to disagree.
Well, but here's the thing. Number two.
We weren't taught that, though. We
weren't. No. No, and see, that comes from self-discovery. Yes. Well, but see, you have to, and that's the thing, you have to be able to evolve. If you're not willing to evolve, or even just be open to other ideas, you don't have to agree with them, but just be open to hear them, you're not going to get to that point. You're not going to be able to acknowledge that. Even though I was raised Pentecostal, I can still sit here and say I was raised Pentecostal with a father who was raised Baptist, going to a Catholic school. I was exposed to nothing but doctrine.
You sound like me. So, started off Baptist. You already know that because Unity Fellowship is Baptist.
Yep.
Then was brought into a non-denominational Christian environment. Went to Catholic school for 2 years. So
Mind
we're not praying to Mary. We're not doing the rosary. We're not
genuflecting. We're not going to confession. Right.
It's like you're not doing Ash Wednesday. No ashes on your forehead. There's no mass that you're going to. I'm like, so why am I here?
Right. Right. What's the point of all this then? And that's the thing.
That was a nice thought.
It was great. All 2 years of it. Great. Thanks for the experience. Tried it, didn't like it, moving on.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, you have to be able to take bits and pieces of that and appreciate it and then move on from it. That even if it's not your jam. My last year of being in Catholic school was all girls school freshman year, and we had Franciscan monks, and that blew my mind. I'm like, this dude in a robe is going to sit here and talk to me about the rhythm method. We're doing this today? Cool. Okay. Wasn't ready. Never will be. The thing about it is, though, I think another reason why, and this is number 2, why science has such a difficulty in accepting anything that theology has to say is because religion has been manipulated too many times. It's flawed. And it's flawed in a way that people don't want to talk about or acknowledge, because then that means God is flawed. It doesn't mean God is flawed. It means that man who wrote everything down was flawed.
Yeah.
Think about it. You have all those books of the Bible. I know for a fact there's 66 because I learned a whole rap and did it for like the majority of my childhood. So there's 66 books. First of all, the Old Testament is very punishing. It's very, if you do wrong, you have strict consequences and God will smite you, and how dare you disrespect him. And then the second part of it is Jesus loves all of you, and you should love each other and treat each other the way you, it's like 2 very contrasting parts, right? And maybe because, God thought about, when I tried it that way and I had to make a lot of people disappear. So I'm going to try it different, like any parent does. The first child, you say you do it one way. Okay, well, I'm not too sure I liked how the first one turned out. We're going to try something different with number 2. My parents literally told this to my face when my sister came along, so I know parents do this. However, King James Version, right? He took the Bible and took out parts. There's a whole book of Thomas that has been proven exists. He took it out because the book of Thomas said you don't need to go to church. The kingdom of God is within you. So you didn't have to go to a building and worship like Catholicism told you you had to. Because that's the thing about Catholicism. Back then, only the rich people could read. So how did everybody learn hymns? They went to church and were taught. The priest told them what to think, told them what to believe, told them what to say, told them what to sing. And everything had to be in Latin because, of course, that's the basis of every Western language. So you were forced to believe what you believed, not because you were enlightened and experienced it for yourself, because you were uneducated and that's what you were told you had to do, right? So religion has been manipulated several times. Like I said about Martin Luther, he created a whole nother religion because Catholicism didn't float with him. Catholicism didn't float with a lot of people, if you want to be honest, because it is very rigorous and there's sacraments for everything. And if the one thing I learned in Catholic school that bothered me the most, and I'm not knocking Catholicism, I'm just saying my perspective of it, you can sin as much as you want, go to confession and tell the priest, and all you have to do is 5 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers, and you're never told don't do it anymore. You're just told that God will absolve you of your sins. Yep. Go forth and pray, my child. Because I was forced to go to confession in one of the Catholic schools I went to.
And the other thing that I had, one thing that I was confused on was the whole the waiting place, like when you die, that whole
Purgatory.
yes. And I was
Purgatory.
like,
Yeah.
huh?
Oh, wait. Hey, cousin, I see you there.
I'm
Purgatory
like,
never made sense to me either. Because why? If you lived your life however you lived it, and then you die, and then you meet your maker like everybody says you're going to, the decision should just be made right there. It's either up or down. Why is there a middle? Why do we need to wait? Why do we need to figure it out? Wasn't
and
he
it was
watching the
like
whole
if you
entire
killed
time?
yourself, you would be in purgatory. Or if you like died tragically for some reason, like purgatory. And I was like,
So
I
it
don't.
wasn't quite your time. You weren't really supposed to go right then, but you just happened to be dead. So we just gonna put you in limbo because we're not really sure. We need to
What to
review
do
your
with you,
file.
right? We
Right.
need to redo your like what's the show oh my gosh, with Ted Danson.
The Good Place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's review your life and see what you
Right.
did in your life. Oh no,
Right.
you're not going to the good place. Come to
It's
find
like,
out, the good place is actually
wait,
hell.
it's like, let me see. Oh, you know what? There's something that happened on, February 24th. We're going to need you to take a number and go take a seat over there. We'll be with you in just a second. Like, really? What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, what is this? Just tell me what's happening so I can go on about my afterlife. Like, seriously.
Nonsense.
But that's our problem. Like, we can't, with religion, with doctrine, it's been manipulated, it's been torn apart, it's been and this is, I'm sorry, this is the part that's going to upset folks. I am slightly a feminist.
Here you go.
Black
Here
feminist.
you
So
go.
right, here I go. Here I go. Okay. I can accept
I
that the
was laying
Bible
in
was
lunch.
written by men. I can do that. Fine. I can do that, whatever. But this theory, if you look at women throughout the course of the Bible, they're either Mary or Mary Magdalene. There is no in between. She was either saintly or she was an all out slut. Like, it just,
I
there's no,
mean, Sarah.
she was old, which made her on the saintly side. She was old.
What was Naomi?
She was more on the, she,
Yeah.
little Magdalene-ish.
I mean,
Magdalene-ish.
women that's like today. You either a thought or you halfway thoughtish or you got thought tendencies. You might, you might have ratchet tendencies. You might want to twerk a little bit and go to church on Sunday.
Come on. Most people twerk a little bit on Saturday and then go to church on Sunday. Please. And then who they were twerking on the night before is sitting in the pew across the hall, across the
And
them.
be like,
Come on now. Come on now. So, but that's the thing. Like, there's so many potential flaws depending on how you look at it with religion, with doctrine, not spirituality, because notice how nobody really attacks spirituality, but it's all about the doctrine, because the doctrine is something that that man sat down and wrote and said, these are the rules that we're going to follow in order to say that this is what we believe.
mm-hmm.
So it varies. It varies throughout history, throughout groups of people. So science can't sit here and say, "Where's the proof? Proof, where is it? You don't have it? Okay, it doesn't exist. We don't want to hear that." So that's the problem. Now, let's talk about psychology as a science. It's always been laughed at because here again, you can't, there's no proof. Where's the proof? You're talking about stuff that's happening in the brain. We can't just crack people's skulls open, test the brain, then, staple you back together. I mean, we've done that, but it hasn't exactly very
been
well.
A part of those experiments. That's all I have
Like, man, there have been experiments. Cutting open babies, traumatizing babies. A little Albert experiment where they purposely would scare him with loud noises to see what he would do or how he would respond, because that's how we got behavioral sciences from. traumatized, more trauma, more trauma. We've had to traumatize people in order to find out what we know about the brain, about
But that's the
emotions,
same thing
about,
about people with disabilities. When they
yes,
would put them in institutions, cut them open, do
yes,
all of these
yes, drug them, yeah. Mhm.
experimental things, and have things connected to their brain and drilling holes and
Yep,
all of this shock therapy and
yep,
all this craziness. Like,
yeah. That's what because we didn't know any better. We claimed we didn't know any better. I think we took advantage because that's what we've always really done. In order to find out the truth of something, we take the advantage of it and manipulate it to the nth degree, and then
would
say,
that
"Oh
be
wait,
the
there's proof. We have proof now."
would that be Corona?
Oh, I'm gonna take a sip of water because I don't have any tea. Put that down right there. But it wasn't just about people with disabilities. We did this with women. When women had what we now call sexual dysfunction, we called them frigid. We gave them shock therapy. When someone seemed a bit off, what we would now call, schizophrenia, we would bloodlet them, which means we would just let them bleed because we believe
Believe,
their
yeah.
brain was swollen. Anybody who it would now fit in the LGBTQ community, you're different. We're going to put you in an institution and drug you because we can't have you out in the community like that because it's not okay. We did that.
Or not to mention like stuff like the Salem witch trials and all of these different things that were done publicly.
Yes.
This stuff started medically. Like, the
Yes.
government was the one telling people that they couldn't do certain things, and then the public, like, you can't do it. You know what? This just brought me to when you just said LGTB. I can't even get it out. You know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mess it up.
It's a lot of letters, y'all.
But it is. It's a lot of alphabets, and they keep adding them. I don't
So we love
know.
you. We love you.
Yes.
All of you. We
But
love you.
J. Edgar Hoover was gay, y'all.
Oh, God. Right now.
He had a whole partner. Anybody watch the movie? Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, so you was on a nigga witch hunt the whole
Yeah.
time. You weren't gay was like a taboo, and people
Yeah.
was like getting thrown in jail,
Yep. Yep.
and the whole time you got a whole living boyfriend,
Yep.
but yet you want to burn black people at the stake.
Because I can't accept who I am. And think about it. Any bully responds in that way. If you look at the history of bullies, the average bully was abused, neglected, mistreated, had their own form of trauma growing up. And I don't want to be taken advantage of anymore. So I'm going to find somebody smaller than me so I can take it out on them. So I can finally feel like a whole human being, a bigger human being that can finally defend themselves, which you're not really defending yourself. You're just picking on somebody else and moving your trauma and projecting it onto someone. So that's what that was. There were a lot of people in that day who were actually homosexual or queer. I'll just say queer because that would make more sense for what was going on, who were just queer. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily fit into any one rigid category, and they couldn't deal with it because society said, we don't accept anybody who's queer.
Uh-oh, what happened? What happened? What happened? Oh, it paused. It paused. It paused. It paused. Oh man, I lost her. This was getting good. This getting good, y'all. Hopefully she come back. It was getting good. It's a lot of
let me tell you, this pandemic has had me watching. I have been a Netflix researcher, followed by Google researcher, followed by, you know, I learned a lot of stuff. And it was like, when I saw the whole J. Edgar Hoover thing, it just blew my mind because I'm like, here he is going on this massive witch hunt to get all of these black people because they're just messing, they're just causing all of this uproar, and they're doing all of these different things. And the whole time he was doing something that was outlawed. Like, he was actually breaking the law while getting criminals. That was like mind blowing to me, or so-called criminals, because they weren't even doing anything. He was creating situations that did not even exist. Because I don't know what his problem was, but whatever. So we talked about. Oh, the other thing was the watching the 13th. We talked about that earlier. So we talked about trauma earlier, um, and all of the different things that have happened to our culture from slavery till now. And because I know some of you all missed that, I actually went ahead and posted that video. So in your free time, you all can go back and view that one, because that had a lot of information in it. And so I'm just gonna give you a rundown, because okay, so I'm gonna show you this book one more time. I bought this book. I actually bought this book sometime during the,
And when I tell you this book was good, I'm still working through it though, because I started reading another book at the same time and winded up finishing
first, but um this is really good. And it talks about a lot of issues that we have had to deal with and more. So if you all are interested, buy this book, because it's really, really good. But we talked about the history of trauma, which one of the things is post-traumatic slave syndrome. But slavery, we talked about chattel slavery, the time frame that it started, Jim Crow, um, Red Summer that happened in 1919. We talked about that, where it was 13 days of racial violence that happened on the south side of Chicago, that left like black people dead, thousands homeless, just a lot of craziness. Then we talked about the welfare system, and how black people were, once they had access to the welfare system, the rules stated that they couldn't have any adult men in the home. So we talked about that. Then we talked about um, even the drug, the so the massive boom in the crack cocaine era, how that divided families, sent a lot of people to jail, had a lot of people in jail because they were on drugs. Just we talked about a lot of things. The pipeline, the prison system, the systems that were set up, like child protection and foster care, that basically said black people can't take care of their own kids, so we're going to set up a system doing this. Although they created all of these different issues and all of this different systematic stuff that led us to not be able to take care of our children. Even talking about the whole mammy situation, we talked about that, and how black women were taking on roles, taking care of white people's babies, breastfeeding them, but then we're not good enough or smart enough to do anything else, and we're neglecting our own children to take care of master's kids or whoever, so that we can make a living for our families. Like, all of this stuff is crazy and it's traumatizing. So we talked about a lot of that stuff. Um, Things that are happening now are a direct result of all of that stuff that we have gone through. And even the issue with men not being in the home, well, that was all systemic, because if slavery, you were separated, and then fast forward, slavery is quote unquote abolished. Now the black family either finds themselves or creates a new family. Now they had to figure out some way to destroy the structure, because that also talks about, like, that speaks to the power and the unity of the black family. So it's like, just like, actually now the pandemic has actually made people live together, actually made people closer, right? So what I was saying earlier was, I got a little tickle, that people that have gotten all these different loans fraudulently will be a part of another form of mass incarceration, because looking at the numbers, they winded up releasing people from jail during this time. They winded up, people died, all of this different stuff. So their numbers are down with the prison system. Well, we know that the prison system is like the $1 billion baby. So they are going to wind up sending people to jail, which is going to boost their pockets. So I was saying that in 2022, there might be another round of mass incarceration that will separate the black family. Oh, here she is again. Is she coming on? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? It said, where'd it go? What? Uh-oh, something happened. So, um, it seems like history will wind up repeating itself, but all of this stuff is still a form of slavery, because once a person, just like the 13th Amendment, once a person um becomes a felon or is incarcerated, they then become a slave to the system. So that becomes free labor. Ooh. So we talked about all of that. Also, we discussed watching the 13th on Netflix, because it gives an in-depth um, information on all of this and how the system has been set up. And there's a lot of trauma behind it, because even black men haven't been feeling like they were valued, um, and all of these different things, because for the longest time, the government has been keeping black women and black men separate. So, um, what we're seeing with men that are not knowing what the roles they're supposed to be in or supposed to be playing, or they feel discouraged or down or whatever the case may be, because there's been a lot of systemic things that have happened to the black man and to black women. Um, to tell a black woman, I'm sorry, to tell a black woman that she cannot have a man in the house. So that means that if she's getting Section 8, She cannot be married on Section 8. She can only be dating. So what does that mean? Men in and out of the house. So we discussed that in the first part. And so the children are seeing this constant rotation of the men in the house and all of this different stuff, which is then, traumatizing to them too. Not to mention if these men are doing extra things with the children. So it's just a lot of different things. And then they put in these different systems to say, well, you need to see a social worker for this and you need to do this. Like we don't know how to take care of our own when we haven't taken care of them for many, many years. And if you talk to people's grandparents or great grandparents, if they're still here, they would tell you that some of them breastfed other people's babies. Some of them nurtured other people's babies. So they was good enough to, she said her phone couldn't handle the conversation and died. That's okay. That's okay. Well, if you could come back, in a few minutes, I'm just going over what we already discussed and kind of giving a summary of the first video to where we are now. But even the whole system is just crazy as far as how it's been set up and how it's done us. And you have people that don't think that the system has been like this, but in all actuality it is. Not to mention the broken families, that structures that people have experienced, and not having their dads in the home, not having moms in the home, so they have that trauma of feeling like they are not loved or important or all of these different things. You have kids growing up and getting into street life because either it is something that is forced or something that is like, well, I have to do this in order to take care of my mama, or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of different things that are going on, and they're making it seem like we're the crazy ones or we're the ones that don't have it all together, when it's clearly been from the beginning of time where we actually had structure. If you look back and look at the Moors are the ones that taught whites how to do certain things, and they didn't have knowledge of these things. The Moors gave them these different not the knowledge to do certain things or to study certain things or to how to build certain things, or even how to wash their butt, like certain things that they didn't do before. We were giving them the knowledge to do and showing them how to do it. And it's like now they flip it and say, nah, y'all didn't know that, we taught y'all that. And it's like really crazy. Even down like the music, they'll say that they're the ones that created classical music, and in all actuality they did not create classical music. Classical music was created by a black man, but they don't want to talk about that. So, and it's funny because a lot of black people don't even listen to classical music because they think it's a white thing, but they have brainwashed us to think that that's something that just white people listen to. I actually listen to classical music. It's good for your brain. But there's just so many things. So we were just talking about trauma, and now we're talking about Black psychology, the study of our lived experiences. So the things that we go through and deal with on a daily basis. Let me see. Hold on. Hello. I actually added her too, so I don't know.
Oh, okay,
It
that
might
would
be
be
good
great.
split.
Okay,
I'm gonna see.
I'm gonna turn off my mic real quick, and then I'm gonna come back.
Okay.
My sister, my cousin.
Hello, hello.
You know what I wanted to come in about, even with listening to the two of you. Um, I was also having a conversation, with my family here at the house, and I have my earpiece in this ear, and having a conversation with this. So it was basically I was multitasking, basically,
Mhm.
and a lot of things that within this particular conversation that you two were having, it it came to this. And I was letting them know that everything that I'm saying to y'all, they are pretty much saying the exact same thing of what I'm saying, in this present moment. So some people don't feel as, that how powerful, words are. Words have power.
Mhm.
And we need to understand that our words have power, and that's basically what it is. And this whole psychological stuff that
Mhm.
uh we experience, it is so real. It is so real, and that's kind of some things that we go through life.
Mhm.
um and it's necessary to be spoken about, because you never know what a person is going through mentally. You never know that. And to hear you guys speak in the midst of my conversation that I'm having with my family, so I have everybody in each ear, so I'm hearing and I'm listening and that time, but the conversation that you two were having, it ministered to me to speak more values to what we were also discussing too, in that moment. And I had to let them know. I'm like, y'all don't understand what I'm doing right now. Like this stuff, right? Both of these are serious to me. I was
Mhm.
I was supposed to be in a part of this conversation, but I'm not going to join because of we're having this important conversation
Mhm.
now at this moment. But then once I saw that Cuz had, she had some technical difficulties in that moment, and she was trying to still get on, but it just made me realize that, okay, well, it's time for you to step in and, get in and let them know, what that particular conversation, did for you while you was going through your conversation, with your,
Mhm.
at that time. So this is very necessary, for our people, because we don't fully understand, as we talked about the last time that you and I were on here, was that a lot of people don't fully, especially in our culture, a lot of people don't fully understand um, what counselors mean, psychiatrists mean, all of those type of things. They don't understand that we're put here for a reason. Regardless of what our backgrounds are, we're still put here for a reason. And
Mhm.
to use that, and not just to be like, oh, because we just been so, it was just so instilled in us, oh, just go to God in prayer and
Pray
just,
about it. Yep.
as, we can't have that counselor to just help us through this, because what we don't know and what we don't fail to realize is that God was probably put into that counselor, to help us through that situation
Mhm.
and in that moment. And that's, because I remember when I first went to counseling, probably about 8 years ago. And I'm not going to say no names or anything like that, but it was a couple family members, a couple people was just like, oh, we don't do that. We, we forgot, and pray. And it made me feel a certain type of way. I never said anything about it, but I just let it be what it was. But
But
I,
it's a lot of us that got our own issues. So, I think everybody needs to be in somebody's therapy.
Exactly, because it's a lot of us, because we've experienced a lot of sweeping things under the rug, and just going forth with it.
Yep.
It was just so many of that for so long. And so now that we've come into our own identities, this is just pretty much, where we stand. And so where I am now, with so many things that I've experienced in recent times, I'm letting everybody know is that I have boundaries now. I have boundaries now, and I'm letting you know how I want to be treated, how I deserve to be treated. This is what I need for you to do for me, and I'm willing to reciprocate those things.
Mm-hmm.
Not do that for me, then you don't need to be in my life. You don't need to be in my circle or anything like that. Because
Now you sound like me, because lately I've been like, I'd rather be by myself than to talk to people and they foolishness. They have foolishness to say.
yeah.
I don't have time to entertain no stupid conversations. My
Mhm.
mind can't conceive no drama, no garbage. I can't regurgitate it. I don't want to hear it. So
Yeah.
either I'm working or I'm at home working on
Yeah.
something else.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, I don't need to be sitting up at nobody's house, talking to nobody, entertaining nobody that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. And
Exactly.
it's like, I've realized that, like, I now have boundaries, limits, and it's like, now I'm like, oh, I'm good. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all right.
And you have to
We
stand.
cool from a distance.
Exactly. You have to stand on that, because even when you say it, some people may still take advantage of that. Some people may still feel like, oh, I have just a little bit much, and I'm going to see, or I want to see how they're going to react or respond to this, or do this, or do that. The exception to the rule. So it's just like, do you feel like that you're an exception to the rule, or like this doesn't benefit you, or this not towards you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it? Because what I'm saying is it's actually real, and you need to respect that, just as well as I'm going to hold myself accountable for it towards you.
Mm-hmm. But
So
then so a lot of times people hold you to old standards, old
exactly what it.
behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
old, all of this old stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
when you make a little bit of a change, they're like, well, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? And it's like, you ain't running nothing over here. Who you talking to? But it's a lot of people like that, and they want to hold on to whatever that, if you are in an unhealthy state that benefited them, they
Mm-hmm.
would rather hold you to that unhealthy state because it's a benefit to them.
Right.
And then they want to do things like when we was talking about triggers before, they want to do things to trigger you, to bring you back to that old stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
then it will be beneficial for them. It'll
Exactly.
make them feel a certain type of way, or it'll make them be like,
Because
oh well, you know,
that you would
I
respond.
you need me now.
Yeah.
Now you need me. Now
Yeah.
it's like, what? This is some crazy some
Mm-hmm.
crazy jacked up people.
It
But
is.
that's their own trauma. That, like when we were talking about trauma in the first half, other people have their own trauma, and there are people that thrive off of trauma. So they create drama that
Okay.
that speaks to the trauma that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I was talking to this guy, and he kind of jacked up. That's all I'm gonna say. His mindset is just jacked up. He feel like the world owe him something, but I'm like, you're almost 40 years old. You should know don't nobody owe you nothing. Go out and work. Don't stop asking people for stuff. You always begging. Why you begging?
Mm-hmm.
40-year-old men should not be begging. Now, for a while, tried to be respectful. I be trying to be like, well, he a man. Try not to talk to him and degrade him. And then I was like, nigga, get off your ass and do something. I ain't got time for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
like, yo, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear no sob story. I don't want to hear none of that. When you was a kid, you old now. I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I tell you what it is, so when I said that, why are you talking to me like that? Because when I was talking to you in a nice way, you didn't comprehend what I was saying. So then I had to be like, nigga,
Mm-hmm.
get your together.
Yeah, get your shit together is what you meant to say.
I'm like, so he thrives in, he's a person that thrives in those past traumas, what everybody did to him. So he has that victim mentality.
Mm.
So I just started, like, this past week I was going off. And then after a while, I was like, I'm about to ignore you because I don't have time to be treating you like you my son. You're older than I am. And I'm talking to you like you're my son because you can't get yourself together because you're blaming other people for your nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm like, you need some therapy. No, I ain't nobody doing all that. I'm like, you really do because, yo, you jacked up. If you think that you're going to be 40, 50 years old and other people are going to fund your life, other people are going to do all of these other things, yo, you got it all jacked up. And then talk about when somebody can't do something, then they don't have my back. Sir, you are of no benefit to anybody. Like, it can't be reciprocated in any way, shape, form, or fashion because
I want to point this out real quick. I've noticed how some people from your page and also my page has chimed in. Like I've seen numbers go up and go down, but I
mm-hmm,
see how they've chimed in, and then it wasn't nothing that was for them, because that's why people get off live when it's something that doesn't interest them. When they see certain things, or hear of certain things, and it's
mm-hmm,
for them, they get off, and that's kind of how it was, last time, that we were on here, and I've noticed that as well in that point. But the things that are being discussed is very necessary, and people, it's like if you're not popping your ass or things like that, or doing this and doing that for the gram or for Facebook and, Twitter, Snapchat, all of these different other social media platforms, it's not for you, because what you're trying to do is pretend that this is your life, when we all know, or even more so you know that's not your life. You know
mm-hmm.
that's not what it is. And so
Yeah.
real stuff come about, you don't want to know, you don't want to listen, you don't want to partake in it, and that's the whole that's the whole
Because
thing.
people have to deal with themselves at that point. When we having these conversations, there are people that don't want to deal with their stuff, right? They're like,
It's crazy.
okay, you're
Really.
calling me out and I don't want to hear it. I ain't got time for it. I'd
Mhm.
rather watch such and such showing her butt, on the ground, whatever video. She done went live. Now I get to see her lingerie for the day or whatever the case may be, or the new video or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people don't want to deal with what the reality is, and the reality is a lot of Black people are jacked up. I think that's what I'm gonna change the title to. A lot of Black people are jacked up. That's what I'm gonna do because
Because those are
we,
facts. And that's just,
we got it messed up,
yeah.
and it's like we think. Okay, so case in point, we were talking about how a lot of even 40 somethings, it's a lot of us out here buying all of this name brand stuff and then getting evicted from our places, or, can't pay rent or whatever the case may be, right? Your priorities is jacked up because you're trying to look like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I was relating that back to the Harlem Renaissance, because even though they went through so much, they wanted to, get up, look nice, show that they were, human beings, and they could, dress nice and be like
Okay.
white people, right? But they had their own events going on and they would look good doing it. But I was like, how many of them was actually going broke doing that though?
Mm.
Even though they worked hard to do it, and that's the difference. They actually worked hard to do it. But how many of them were going broke to look good for everybody else?
Correct.
And then now we're doing the same thing. It's almost like history is repeating itself, except for there's no hard work involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't want to work, but I need to look good. So I'm going to do it by any means necessary. And if somebody else can fund my look, then so be it. And
Right.
it's like, what?
Right.
But that's where we're living, like the world we're living in now.
Mm-hmm.
Even I was talking about like how, because she mentioned like, no, they were doing it for what did she say? Something like because they wanted to be treated like human beings and all of this different stuff. And I was like, yeah, but look at how somewhere the lines get skewed on what they were doing, and now we think this is what we're supposed to be doing to keep up with everybody else, to keep up with the lifestyle that of the rich and famous. And you in ABC cardboard box with Louis on, like,
Right. Right.
what?
Yeah.
It's like our priorities is all out of whack, but also we're not dealing with why do we feel like we need to have it. It's nice to have certain things, but why do you feel like you gotta have it because your best friend got it? You know what I mean? Like, if you can't afford it, then figure out how you're gonna get the money to do that, but make sure you take care of your business first before you go doing that. And that's something that a lot of children haven't been taught, to
Mm-hmm.
take care of your business first and then do that. But it's almost like you need something to soothe the pain. That's how I see it. Like, it's almost like people that just go shopping when they're angry or go shopping when something has happened. It's the same situation. You're like doing something to ease
The pain.
all of the pain and
Yeah.
all of the things that you're going through. But at the end of the day, you're putting yourself in more pain because now you digging a deeper hole for yourself. Now it's self-inflicted because you done dug a deep hole. Now you in more debt than what you was in 5 minutes ago because you done made all of these purchases. Even when I was talking about the people that took out the PPP and they got 6 figures in PPP, or they got $20,000 and went and got their bodies done, or bought new cars and bought new. I'm like, why y'all ain't get out of debt, yo? Like, if y'all was gonna scam the system, the biggest flex is to go get out of debt. You still in debt, but you going to jail with your brand new body. Your body banging, but you about to be on 26 and Cal.
Yeah.
Like, so it
Yep.
don't even matter no more. I'm like, and don't think you're going to federal. They not sending black people to federal. No, you're going to state or county jail. Like, yo, and they gonna give you like 30 years, or they gonna make you pay it double. Like, it's gonna be crazy how the system is gonna do this, but it's like, why are we feeling the need to do this? But they do know that we were already at a financial deficit. So I even talked about that. They knew that most black people were struggling anyway during the pandemic. A lot of people got laid off. A lot of people were dealing with a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So we say we're going to give this money, it's for businesses, what, yada yada yada. I'm pretty sure that they knew what was going to happen. I'm pretty sure they knew this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. But not only that, you do all of these different rounds, and then you come up with laws behind it. What black people did not know was they actually put laws in place behind it when they created that loan, that the grant, the loan, and all of that. They actually put laws in place. So if you break the law, now you're going to jail. Like, it was not a thing before. It was not a law before. Now it's a law. And so it's like they give you access, but then they turn around and change the game on you. This is what we were talking about earlier, is that even with the welfare system, Black people didn't have access to the welfare system. But when they gave us the welfare system and we had access, Black women could not have Black men in the home receiving Section 8. So now you create a division. There's more trauma. There's more issues. The family structure is damaged. But here it is again. My theory is it's going to repeat itself next year. You're going to see mass incarceration again due to that whole PPP situation. But then you're going to have two parents not in the home. So who's going to be taking care of them? You want to experience, because think about it, we've been together with our families during this pandemic, right? So a lot of people have developed better, healthier relationships with their families and all of these different things. So what better way to get rid of that? Because Black people just been too unified. They done had Black Lives Matter movement. They done had protests for Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Everybody too unified. Everybody done came together. Everybody, you know, on the same page. All the Black people on the same page. We got to get them, and we got to change it all. We got to change the game. So what we gonna do?
Right.
We gonna figure out a way to send these people to jail. We gonna figure out a way to do all this. Like, I feel like it's just a lot of things. There's a lot of things that's gonna change by next year. And we're going to be looking like, what the heck?
Hey, Tim, it must be Tati. I'm looking at the comments because.
Oh. So, it's a lot of trauma and this whole mindset that we have developed around traumatic situations where we feel like we deserve certain things, we need certain things, and by any means necessary. So our conversation earlier was deep, so you got to go back to that. But when we start, what did she say? Oh, she's talking to Tim.
Yeah, she said it's me, it's Tati. I knew who you were. I already told him who you were. You got all these doggone pages here.
Her name is unique, so yeah. You already know.
Right.
They already knew when you popped up here, girl.
I knew who it was. Like, God dog.
Yeah, but it's just so much stuff that we have been dealing with. Even when we were talking about who put the drugs in our neighborhoods, it wasn't us. They dropped them in there and was like, okay, here you go, figure out what y'all gonna do. And then changed the rules of the game once they figured out Black people knew how to stretch that bad boy. Because they put cocaine in there and came out with crack cocaine, okay? Because Black people, we figure out how to concoct stuff, how to stretch it, make it work. Everybody get a piece. Even when it's bad, okay?
Well.
But then they stuck us with harder jail time, stiffer penalties than somebody that would have committed the same crime with cocaine, right? So it's like,
you remember which one was on?
They give us these poisons and then change the rules of the game and be like, psych.
Just the same thing that they did with the George Floyd rally, you know, the march and stuff. The protests, you know, they put out all of these bricks and everything that they have done, you know, for us to pick up and, you know, demolish, you know, the places of businesses and everything like that.
But if you paid attention, some of them people that was throwing them bricks was white.
Majority of them were, you know, and that's.
I was just saying something to be nice, but
we're gonna be honest, and we're gonna say majority of them were, if not a 95% of them, because every video that I've seen during that time, that was pretty much all it was. And then I saw us come up to them saying, hey, don't do that. That's not what we out here for. We're trying to get justice, for this situation and for us. But what y'all are doing, y'all making it still harder for us, in this time. You think you're helping, but you're not.
But then it did not help. When the Black people decided to go downtown, Chicago, Gold Coast, and go tearing, breaking into stores, taking stuff, and I was like, now we just told them not to do stuff, and y'all go take y'all black tails, and it's on national TV. Y'all done came in vans, jumped out the car. Why?
There's a reason behind it.
Tim said he wanted to say something.
Hello.
Hi.
So, since the beginning of time, us as colored folks, because I will say more so in the Black community, more so in the Black community, we don't take accountability for anything. We like to point the fingers, and we watch movies, we read books. It's right there, right in front of our faces. And I've had this conversation a couple of times with a few people, and I've always had to break it down to them to fully understand, because they feel like what I'm saying is crazy. White people come up with the plan, Black people execute the plan.
Very true.
There would have not been slavery if our own people didn't help them come up with the plan. Well, not come up with the plan, but execute their plan of capturing other Black people to America.
But here's the thing: the trick was on the joke was on them, because they were bamboozled into doing that. Like, they thought that they were going to get something out the deal, but they winded up not even getting anything.
You're correct, but that's the thing. Like, it's always some type of financial gain, some profit. We do it in this day and age, but no one talks about it. No one takes accountability for it. We do it with our own kids. R. Kelly, for prime example, those parents came up to surface to talk about, oh, I haven't been able to get a hold of my daughter and this, that, and the other. Why?
We just talked about that.
You got cut off.
We just talked about that, because Aisha was saying that, she has a problem with the whole R. Kelly situation. And I'm like, well, technically, being with girls that were 13, 14, 15, 16 has always been the thing. Like, that's always been.
Since the beginning.
Because when they had their periods, it was time to marry them off.
Yes.
They had to get married, have babies. They were young and fertile. So that's been the thing. But their parents, in this instance, their parents actually gave them to him in this instance, because anytime you're getting anything financially, some of them were playing for him. He was paying their bills, and it was just like, you really profited off of this, and now you want to come back because your money done ran dry. Now all of a sudden you're looking for your child. You know exactly where your child is.
Right. Now that they're of age and he doesn't have to pay you anymore, now all of a sudden you want to come clean about everything that
she said it with R. Kelly. Their parents pimped their kids. They did. And they need to be charged too. And I feel that way 100%. Those parents I'm reading the comments. Those parents need to be charged, because I'm like, he's not doing anything that's different from Hugh Hefner. He's not doing anything that was different from Elvis. He's not doing anything. Didn't Jerry Lee Lewis marry his cousin? His cousin was young. Frank Sinatra married this model, and she was like, when he was dating her, she was like 14.
Was 16 when she got together with Russell Simmons.
It's always been happening. It has always happened. Younger women, older men. Although, in some ways, I think that it works out, because
women are more.
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about kids though, but being a younger woman and having an older man, I think that it balances out the household because um for a man, a woman that is of the same age is mentally ahead of him
Yes.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so if you have somebody younger, now you have to teach her different things and you have to kind of groom her. And now there's a little bit more power that you can have because I've watched conversations on YouTube with different men that talk about how dominant women are, but there's a lot of things that have happened. Women weren't able to earn their own incomes before. They couldn't do a lot of things without their husbands. Well, now you don't have to have a husband to have a bank account, have a house, have anything. You can do everything on your own. But not only that, we talked about the system setting it up where you can't have a man in the house if you're on Section 8 or any form of welfare. And then if you say that you have a man or you identify a baby daddy somewhere, now they going to get him from child support. You ain't even got to do it now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
it's like all designed to just put us in a constant state of traumatic events and oppression on a consistent basis.
And with that all being said, like I was just having a conversation with my cousin earlier, my one of my younger cousins, and I had got on him about something. The one thing that we need to take accountability for, if we are angry, we need to accept the fact that we're angry about something. We cannot keep holding on to the past, and we cannot keep saying, well, I need answers, I need answers, I need answers. Because you may not get those answers.
Get those answers, yeah.
But what does your parents on what they did to you back then have to do with you now? Because now that you're an adult and you're living your own life, they can't dictate anything.
Mm-hmm.
I had to tell them, I was like, you get those. I said, you never get those answers. And I said, he dies tomorrow, then what? So you
But that's still that psychological trauma that he's dealing with, though. And how he's processing it is he needs to have answers to those unanswered questions or whatever that didn't happen or did happen.
But on the flip side of that, yes, he needs those answers, but then you're not ready for the answers. And like I told him, I said, when Shay went to counseling, he had questions and he wanted answers. And she had to tell him, what if you don't ever get those answers? What if you don't get those questions answered? And when he told me that, it resonated in me like, what are those answers going to change with who you are now? Is it really going to change anything?
But as people, we like to have some type of closure.
Of course.
Or we want to draw conclusions as to how we were treated, like the reasoning behind the treatment we received, or we always have to have like all of the details when we're like playing private investigator on some stuff that happened, right? So it's almost by default that we do it, but what does happen when we don't get those answers? Like, what if whoever, if it's a parent that wronged you, what if they never tell you why they did what they did? Or what if they're like, I don't want to talk about it?
Or what if they just don't know?
And at that point, I think that it becomes where you have to forgive and then let go. And that's what a lot of people don't want to do.
Yes. And that's exactly what I said today. I said, you have to accept what happened and let it go and forgive. Because you're giving so much power to them that they're not in control of your life no more.
Yeah.
Because me and him, like he was talking about work, and I said, you sound combative. You sound like you had a. He's like, but I said it professionally. I said, but it sounds very condescending. He's like, now that I'll give you. I said, oh, I know. I said, I already know, but it's stemming from somewhere, because you don't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And everything down. He's like, well, I still don't understand. I said, because you don't want to understand. You are set in your ways based off your childhood, which is carrying over into your personal life, which is also carrying over into your career. And that's why nobody want to be bothered.
Oh, that's bad.
I said, what you may be saying may be correct, but your thought process behind it is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, do you think the way she was trained 5 years ago is the same way you were trained a year ago? And he was like, well, in this aspect, yes. I said, no. That's not answering my question. My question is very specific. Overall, do you think the same training that you were provided a year ago was the same training she got 5 years ago? No. I said, okay, with that being said, the way that you came off with something that you expected her to know based off your training from a year ago versus her training from 5 years ago was wrong. I said, interact with people don't realize how you interact with people. The way your traumatic experience in life carries over in every aspect of your life. Like, I realize the way that I talk to Faison is because, or the way I chastise him is more so because the way that I was brought up, in the sense of how hard I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to tell myself, I don't want to be angry. I'm clearly angry about something. I'm holding on to something. I don't want to be like that anymore.
Mm-hmm. But then that makes you emotionally aware. And that's another thing that a lot of us are not. We're not trained to be emotionally aware, nor do we do the work ourselves to recognize when we're having when we're in the midst of situations and we're doing something based off of what was done to us, not realizing that our response is not necessary for that situation. It's another form of trauma that we're just carrying over, and we're like, okay, we're spewing that out on the next person. But to be emotionally aware is something totally different, and it actually takes you doing a lot of work to understand where you are mentally and where you are emotionally, in order to fix that vicious cycle. Because a lot of us have been, think about how a lot of us have been whooped. Right? If you think about just basic whoopings, and it wasn't basic because your soul was being taken out of your body as a black child. Your life was flashing before your little eyes. Your little 5 years or 10 years of your life was gone. What did she say? In the Black community, we are taught standing up for ourselves or speaking up is disrespectful to our elders. Yes, very much so. Standing up to them is disrespectful. But now, and that's the thing, that dynamic is starting to change. So now more elders now still feel disrespected. But a situation where back in the day where you would tell them like, oh, I don't like the way that you're talking to me, they would have backhanded you. Whereas now they're like, okay, well, I don't like how you're talking to me, but it's like it's necessary, because you have to realize you can't go around mistreating people. So the dynamic has changed. But back to the whooping part, we was getting beat like we was enslaved. Like, who beat somebody to their skin is like black and blue? You know what I mean? Like, why were we telling kids to pull a switch off of a tree? I'm just saying, pull a switch out. Now, I didn't get no switch. I got a pretty big a cow leather belt, and I remember like it was yesterday.
Don't work
The thing, Lord Jesus, that bad boy.
thick, big ones.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yeah, honey. I was like, I'm okay. I'm not gonna do anything for the next few weeks.
And I think,
But like, oh, she said black parents can be bullied. Yeah.
yes, I think what
Mm.
is that black parents back then had to instill fear in their kids in order to get their point across, versus now these kids don't fear nothing.
But why is that?
Society has raised our children. You don't have real television shows that actually teach wrong and right. We glorify Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, bagger
Reality shows.
reality.
Yep.
They glorify that, and they end up becoming celebrities and all that stuff. So they feel like, oh well, if they're that way, well, plus, you got the Karens and the Kevins and everybody else talking about, oh, you shouldn't talk to your kid that way. But I do feel that there's 4 types of kids. There's ones you need to whoop. There's ones that you can ground. There's one that you can talk to. And then there's the ones that you can combination of both.
Yeah, that's very true.
And then
I would agree with that.
figure out what type of child you have. That's the only way. And if you're worrying about what society thinks and what other people think, it's not. In addition to, the biggest thing is no one's afraid of getting pregnant as a teenager.
But how many teens are actually pregnant right now that you've seen? I haven't really.
Very many, not anymore. But I feel like that there was a generational where STDs was a thing. Like, I don't want to get pregnant. Then it became into, well, I don't care to get pregnant. I just don't want to STD. And now it's just more so, I don't want kids because it's going to stop me from living my life.
Yes. And I think that's what it is. That's what's happening now.
Because
she said teen pregnancy rates have definitely dropped. They have, but look at this. So we're now in a society where you got to have a bad body, right? So why would you damage your body by going to get pregnant? Because a lot of grown women have even said that. I'm not having a baby, so I can mess up all this.
Mhm.
But a lot of them haven't even put the physical work in. They went to the doctor work. So then that means they got to go pay another doctor to put them back together again like Humpty Dumpty because they got knocked up. So why would you go get knocked up if you have to go do that? So it's like that in itself stops a lot of girls because they don't want to be, they want to have a certain shape or they want to look a certain way because now Instagram and all of these other social media platforms is telling you gotta look, everybody's body look the same. It's irking to me. I'm like, because you know that you're not made like this and you done got all types of injections.
Yeah. You got people like Beyonce, who's such a big public figure. She was one of the first, as far as that I noticed, in that generation to be a curvy girl and be accepted and not have to be.
I think because she was light skinned.
Of course. I hands down, of course.
Because if she was browner, when Jennifer Hudson got small, Fantasia was small. Well, Fantasia and Beyonce was kind of thick around the same time.
Yeah.
Fantasia
did not the ideal chick. That's just what it was. They marketed on that. They took it, and now then when you got Kim Kardashian coming out with her booty and hips and stuff like that, then it was like, okay, this is what everybody want to look like.
That she got done. Let's just say none of these people work for this body, okay? None of them people work. Well, Beyonce is different. Beyonce went to all different extremes to try to fit in stuff and whatever she had going on, but
She wanted to be.
Kim Kardashian, that body was made in the lab. Her sisters' bodies are made in labs, with the exception of two of them.
Right.
But that doggone Chloe, that doggone Kylie, I don't know what the world they got going on, but
Don't
bodies
look
in
like
the lab. Then you got people like these rappers like what's her name?
Cardi.
I see her face. Not just Cardi.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Even the ones that are not main. I'm talking about one that's not mainstream, but she was on Love and Hip Hop, and she went and had the surgery. She was heavy.
Love.
I see her face. Love and Hip Hop. She got a big mouth. Y'all flew here, I grew here. That's her. That's her thing.
Oh,
her tail went to, because I was looking at something somebody posted. They posted a picture of her, and she had all of these bags, and after getting the surgery, and she was like, she posted a picture of her post-op talking about she was a bad bee, right? And so somebody leaked the picture of her with all these drains everywhere, and they like, oh, so this is what bad bees do. So she went and got all of this surgery for her to be small. Now she's little. And it's like, after she showed it, first off, the doctor is in Atlanta, because I looked it up. I looked up where she went to see if it was like a Dr. Miami situation. I was curious. So here I go researching. Here go my Instagram research. So she went to a black guy, Dr. Curbs. Akbar. Yep, it was Akbar. You're right. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So she went to Dr. Curbs, and after she posted that video, and then he turned around and tagged her results when she went in for her post-op exam. When I tell you, his following went through the roof.
I believe it.
And I was like, what in the world? So now people are like, let me go get my body done. I was just in Vegas. My friend lives there.
Got her.
And her cousin was talking about, girl, I got my body done and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, okay. So she showed me her before picture. She was my size before. Now she's like really, really, really little. But when she explained the fact that she was in so much pain because she got a back lift, a breast lift, she got a 360, I was like, that sound like it hurt. Like, my face was like, oh, girl, what? Back lift? Where they literally
stretch.
Like,
oh,
why? Right. Why? I'm like, why are y'all doing this? Because in a few years, you're going to have to go get maintenance done on your body. You're going to have to keep going and get maintenance like it's a car. And eventually, you going to run out of money to keep getting the maintenance. So then what's going to happen? All that work you got done is going to fall apart because you wasn't doing anything healthy to keep it together in the first place. You just went and got a quick fix. And now this is like the wave though. And I'm like, so you don't like you that much. That's the other part. Trauma. You don't like you that much.
Self-love.
That you would go through all of this pain to look like everybody else. Why are we doing this? And these are a lot of Black girls doing this.
Whatchamacallit talked about plastic surgery, had her butt implants removed just to go back and get a whole work done on her face and body.
Oh, K. Michelle.
Yeah, and I just heard about that today. They're like, she looks great, but she doesn't look the same. And I'm like,
she, to me, is a prime example of somebody that does not love themselves. I feel like she's
at
a
all.
classic example of that. She will tell you that she does, and she will be loud about it. And I'm like, your loudness does not convince me otherwise, because you wouldn't have done half the stuff you've done. Then you make a whole reality show about finding the love of your life and having babies, and you running the men away because you're yelling and screaming all the doggone time. Then you go get this booty out of this world, and then you got these boobs, and then stuff is leaking everywhere. Now you didn't learn your lesson after you had to get the stuff taken out because you was about to die. Now you go get your face done. What?
Let's hit the fact that you sit here, you want to find love and have all these babies, but you don't even take care of the one that you got now.
I didn't even know she had a kid for the longest time. I didn't even know. And I was like, why are you talking about babies? When I found out, why are you talking about babies when you ain't taking care of the one you had?
Like Erica Mena. You had a baby with Safari. But
She got a son.
right. She got a son that her mama was raising in Miami.
Yeah.
While you
She
living in
talked about him I think in the beginning of Love and Hip Hop, and she was basically saying her mom is watching him because she's trying to pursue her music career. I don't know how I necessarily feel about that, because what's her name did the same thing, Spice. She left her kids to go pursue her music career.
there are women out here every day of their lives, single mothers, taking care of their kids. Not one, multiple kids. Work
I feel like at a certain point they should have got a nanny.
and go right. You sit here and talk about you got all this money. Why are they not with you? Why don't you get help? Why don't you move your mama with you to watch your child if that's the case?
It's, a lot of our priorities are jacked up as a culture because we still dealing with trauma, trying to keep up what looks good for our image. And a lot of those shows, it's about the image,
Mm-hmm.
because Spice did a whole thing about colorism and all of this other stuff, how she wasn't getting any shows the way that everybody else was getting shows because she's darker.
Which
And
do with that, but
I don't really know if that's necessarily true though.
she came here at the wrong time. She's from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaican music, it's not popular anymore. It was in early 2000s to mid 2000s. It was hot and popping. It's not anymore. You don't even hear about Sean Paul. You don't hear about Beanie Man. You don't hear about Shaggy. You don't hear about any of them.
And I love that music. Oh my goodness.
So, there was something you said that I was gonna touch on.
The nannies, them having the nannies to
Oh
come watch their kids.
no.
Trying to keep up with everybody else because they're on, television.
Yeah, that it was similar to that, but it wasn't that. It was. I can't remember, but I'm sure it'll come back to me.
It's a lot of stuff that's like going on, but the crazy thing is white people make us feel bad for our bodies, and this was the conversation that we had in the first live that I actually posted. But black people's, black women's bodies have been on display for years and years and years, and they have loved our bodies in secret and really ridiculed our bodies and our heaviness in public. They made us believe and
Boop.
that our bodies were a bad thing. What did you say?
Betty Boop. You created a black character that was originally supposed to be black to white.
She reminds me of Dorothy Dandridge with a ditzy spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother conversation. Cultural appropriation. that conversation could go on forever.
They need really to self-love. They need to take accountability. Even for the small things, you still have to take accountability. Women, you guys got it rough. You guys really do got it rough, and I do feel like you guys struggle. I feel women nowadays, because they become so independent, men are struggling with that evolution. Women are struggling with that evolution within themselves. I do feel that a man always wants to feel needed. And that's where some women kind of struggle with, because it's like, well, I got my own stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you got your own stuff, but there's nothing wrong with just holding back just a little bit. You know,
I did a conversation on that when I talked about gender roles. I want to say that was the second live that I did. But I talked about men needing to feel needed and women wanting to feel wanted.
I remember.
And that it's a lot of that going on, because men don't feel like they have a place because women are very independent. And it's kind of because the system has been set up for us not to need men. It's like, then what do I need you for if I can provide for myself? But technically speaking, a lot of women without the welfare system are not able to provide for themselves.
They don't even need a baby anymore.
No, they don't. There's a lot of craziness going on.
Yeah.
But that also is damaging to the Black family, because how many people are actually getting married now? How many lasting marriages are actually happening? We're not seeing that part. We're seeing people jumping from one person to the next, to the next, to the next.
Because nobody,
and it's like,
their own skin or their own company in order for them to get to know themselves, in order for them to be right for it. That's what it was. People have all these lists of requirements of what they look for in a mate that they're not.
Yep.
So you can't have this perfect man or perfect woman, and you ain't not even half of those things that you are your requirements.
That's very true.
Right there.
And there are a lot of, it's funny because it's men that think that they should have this woman that looks like Kim Kardashian, and they look like, what the heck?
Biggie Smalls.
Yeah. Or worse. I don't know. But I'm like,
Correct.
why do you think you're not even cute? Like, I can't even look at you. Like, no. And you don't have anything going for yourself. That's the other part. There are some men that think that they're supposed to get with women who have everything going on for themselves, and then they have nothing going on. Literally, they're barely working, or they don't want to work. Some men have finagled the system to get Section 8. And so it's like all of these different things, but they're not, to your point, they're not like the person that they're seeking out to be with. And this is consistent on both fronts. And it's like, just like I was watching that whole Kevin Samuels, and I be on the fence with him. Not a real Kevin Samuels fan, but there were women calling in talking about they need a 6-figure earner and all this extra stuff, and I'm like, yo, how do you why do you need this? Because at the end of the day, the stuff that it takes to keep a man like that, you don't want that life.
Mm-mm.
Because a lot of those men have crazy fetishes. A lot of those men have arranged type of situations.
Or
They
the
will marry you and you're just a piece of arm candy and nothing more. And it's like, and then the man that makes $30,000, $40,000, you throw him out like he's not worthy of being with you when that man would be loyal to you. So what are we doing? Are we doing it for a look? And that was actually a part of what we talked about earlier. Are you doing it for a look, or are you doing it for the actual relationship?
everybody's morals and values is there's no longer morals and values. Girls want to look like Beyonce and Kim Kardashian, but underneath that makeup, they don't look like that. You know, they want to be taken care of, but then you want to be respected at the same time. But I'm a firm believer, how you go into something is how you're going to be treated as something. So if you go into it with shit, it's going to be shit.
That's true.
And I do feel like, yes, men are stupid and they think with the wrong heads and all this stuff, but women are very strategic
Strategic.
with what they do.
Yep.
You know, um,
Now, women are, you know what? I'm gonna be honest. It's a lot of women that's doing the dummy too. Because
yeah,
I was watching Mr. Let Go earlier, and he was talking about a woman that was bashing her baby daddy, but she done had 3 kids for this man, and she was bashing him publicly about all of the things that he wasn't good enough for and all of this stuff. But she got all of these different kids, so she and in all actuality, you're not making good choices, and then you want to bash him for being who he is, but you're making the choice to keep procreating with him without addressing the fact that you're negligent in your own choice because you just out here like, get me pregnant, and he's not taking care of his kids. So it's almost like you're sacrificing yourself, and then you turn around and be like, you did this to me. Now you the victim, but you really just self-sacrificed, right? You just laid yourself out and was like,
it,
here I am.
back,
Now all of a sudden I got taken advantage of. The story has spun into something else.
because people are so quick to say what, especially in that particular instance, they're not taking a good look in the mirror of like, okay, if I'm talking about this man that I've had 3 babies by, how does that make me look? And
Like, you need to get your
people
ish
all
together.
the time, you so quick. Oh, well, she said this about you. I'm gonna use my own personal thing. My mom is mad at her younger sister, her baby sister. They're not speaking. They probably will never speak again. So because I didn't entertain it, my mom wanted to be toxic and be like, well, you just wait till she starts talking about you and telling your business and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I would address it when that time comes. But as of right now, I'm staying out of it. I guess that wasn't good enough for her. So then she went as far as, oh, well, you know, she talked about you. She tells all your business and this, that, and the other. And I still wasn't responding. So then she took it even deeper. Oh, we all knew. She knew you was gonna be gay, so she could. And now, mind you, she knows me and my aunt are 10 years apart, and we're like this. And my aunt may be many things, but she is not a liar. And so my mom had to just go as far as, hey, she talked about you when you was a little boy, talked about how you was gonna be growing up to be a sissy and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. I still didn't respond because I was not giving you that power.
Mm-hmm.
And because you mad. You want,
But that's trauma. You want to pull in other people.
and I'm not falling for it. And so I ended up telling my aunt, and she called me on Father's Day, and she, to wish me happy Father's Day. And she, and I told, we had spoke about it like 2 days before. And she's like, you know what, I thought about it. And she's like, I just want to thank you for not believing in that. I said, you don't have to thank me. I already knew where that was coming from.
Yeah, and that was coming, and that's the other thing. People that have gone, and I don't know, your mom, but people that go through their own trauma and their own, all of those experiences behind it, then it becomes toxic. They become toxic in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And then everything is always somebody else's fault or issue, or they bring you in, like we were saying earlier, they'll bring you into a situation just to feed off of some toxicity because that does something for them. And that's really sad, but a lot of us do that. Like, I can't speak to the white culture because I'm not white, but a lot of Black people do that. And we don't celebrate the healing aspect because it's still a crabs in a barrel mentality when it comes to somebody who is not feeding into the drama or not giving into being a victim or realizing the other side of what trauma looks like and understanding, for my sanity, for my health, I am addressing things in this nature because I'm not giving any more energy to that because it serves no purpose for me. A lot of people in our culture don't do that because, one, that takes work, like I was saying, but then two, they still have stuff to work on, and they don't like the fact that you worked on your ish and you figured out who you are and what you want and what you do and how you operate. And like Shay was saying, your boundaries. A lot of people don't understand that, like, because they haven't worked through their stuff. So they're still coming from a traumatized place, but they're just operating in the world, and it's all dysfunction.
But I was saying,
bad.
Because, like, I told my aunt, because I think I can feel over the phone that she felt like, why didn't I go get furious? And like I told her, I said, because I know it's not true. That's why. And at the end of the day, you being her sister, I said, think about it this way. Let's say you did do that. You said all those things about me as a kid. What does that say about her as my mother? That she allowed her sister to do all this stuff to her son. I said, that's the part that people forget. You're so quick to want to react, but at the end of the day, what does that say about you? You're sitting here telling me, and as my parent, you're supposed to keep me safe, keep from that, and why would you tell me that?
So the question remains, well, something that sticks out to me is that what was done to her? Like, what?
So
how was she treated growing up?
So what, over the years, and what I've come to the conclusion now is that's just who she is. My mom has never had anything nice to say about anybody in the family other than her grandfather.
But there's an underlying issue that's happening, like something.
There is
something
psychological. That's why when I asked my aunt, one day we talked on the phone for like 4 hours, and I said, when great grandpa died, I said, you were really young. And she was like, yeah. And I said, that's the only person that my mom has ever spoke highly of out of the whole entire family. I said, when he died, is that when she changed? And she said, you know what? I think so. I said, oh, so she just broke and just lost her damn mind at that moment. And she was like, you know what? I think so. I think you're right.
She
And
said it sounds like bitterness.
she blamed my grandmother. My mom blamed my grandmother, her mom, for his death. And he died of burst appendix.
Oh, wow.
And you know, back then, I don't think there was really nothing you could do like you can now. My mom is 60, so she was a child at that time, probably no more between a tween, maybe 13,
Mm-hmm.
14. So that was traumatic for her. And I just feel like from that point on, she has just lost her mind because, like, my grandmother, well, and I know my grandmother had a rough life as well. You know, she raised all her siblings, had to drop out of school at a very young age. You know, the typical traditional, and they're Puerto Rican. They're not black.
Mm-hmm.
They're straight from the island, everything. So, you know, that was normal back then.
Mm-hmm.
No, if the mom dies, the oldest sibling takes care of the rest of the family while
Mm-hmm.
the father goes to work. That's just what it was. And so for me, I just feel like I've always wondered, like, why is she this type of person? And so finally, as I started to get older and just thinking back of all of our conversations about how that's the only person out of everybody in the family, from her aunts and her uncles and stuff, her grandfather was the only person she spoke positive about. So it just made me think that I wonder if when he died, that just broke something in her that just caused such.
And she never got past it.
Right. And so when me and my aunt were talking, I said, she's like, you know, I really don't know like what all happened with him. I do know that he died from his appendix bursting. Um, she's like, because I was really young. And so I was like, okay, because she's the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm 44, she's 54.
Okay.
So, you know, so it's like, she was like, I was really young. She's like, but I know she blamed grandma for it. And I think she probably still does. And I'm like, And I said, so basically, since really young, she's just been this type of person.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom brings up things like she told me one time. She's like, recently actually, she's like, did I ever tell you the time I got raped? Like if I, like just nothing. Like, oh, I went to Walmart today and bought a gallon of milk and just went shopping. And I'm like, no. She's like, yeah. And told me the story. And I'm like, okay.
That explains a lot, though.
And then she was like, but the thing is, it's hard for me to believe because my mom's a pathological liar as well.
Mm.
Like, literally, real bad. And so then she's like, did I ever tell you that I met a pimp that took me under his wing and treated me like his daughter and, you know, showed me the ropes and all this stuff? And I'm like, no. And she just, like, kept telling me all this stuff, like, in general conversation. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? In my mind, I'm like, you're talking about this like this is nothing. Like, these are serious things. You know, and I remember telling Shay about it, and he was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, but then it makes me question, because I know she's a liar, did these things really happen? Or if this is just a figment in her head? Because, like, the things that she told me about my grandfather, that he was abusive to my grandmother, but comes to find out, he wasn't.
Mm.
And that he raped my grandmother, that's how they end up getting together, because at that time, in that day and age, that if you lost your virginity by somebody, you had to stay with them. Because
Mm.
now that wasn't the case. So it just made me put everything in perspective. I'm like, was there anything that she said that was truthful?
Wow. Yeah, she's dealing with something. It's something she may not ever tell it, but it's something
Yeah.
that actually happened that has triggered her. And I feel like a lot of stuff that we do is basically what we're dealing with underneath. The demons that a person fights underneath comes out as something else, and it's almost like spewing out venom on other people because of all of the things that we're dealing with, right? And so there are some people that are just like that. Like they walk around causing drama, causing this because they blame other people for the things that have happened to them. Or they're like, well, nothing in my life goes right. Hello, hello for those that are joining. Nothing in my life goes right. So I'm just gonna tell you that nothing's gonna go right for you. This is not gonna happen. And how Shay was talking about earlier about the power of words, a lot of those things wind up manifesting themselves, but not in the other person's life though. It usually happens in the person that's saying it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because um they are, he said he's from Iran. Oh wow.
Hello.
Right. Hello, hello. Is it daytime there? It's probably tomorrow there, but um I digress. Anywho. um so that's actually what Aisha and I have been talking about is the trauma, and she was talking about the black psychology. I wanted her to dig deeper into the medical part of it because as a culture, we reject mental health. And a lot of those things that are happening, like what you described with your mom, is not having stable mental health, because for you to create lies for, I don't know if it's the reason for making you feel, sad for her or some type of emotion, or I don't know, or maybe she wants to connect with you. And that's the other part I was thinking. Maybe she wants to connect with you and don't know how. So she just says whatever to see if it's going to
See,
reel you in.
I've been thinking a lot lately, and I feel like, you hear about narcissism. So I feel like that's not born. I don't feel like you're born that way.
Hmm.
Trauma has happened that caused you to be that way. And I just feel like you have a weak personality. That's why it takes you, because we all, in some form or fashion in our lives, and this is just every person on the face of this earth has taken on some type of trauma.
Hmm.
But there's leaders and there's followers. There's people who have addictive personalities and there's people who don't. And I feel like people who have addictive personalities are more likely to come out to be a narcissist than someone who is a leader. Because
I would agree.
because
I would agree with that one.
trauma that has occurred to them. Because we all feel alone in some form or fashion. You shared that with the last time Shay got on, and about the things that you had experienced. We all feel alone in something, some trauma that we feel, but when we're not, we're really not. There's other people out there we may not just know at that particular moment because we're
So, yep.
caught up in our
We're going through it. Yep.
right.
Ourselves.
So I do feel like, those people who are born natural leaders go through it, but we may go through it, but we don't allow it to control our lives, to develop into this narcissistic personality way. So for me, have come to this real resolution of narcissist is created. It's not, you're not born it that way.
Yes. But that's a series of, I feel like it's another form of attention seeking,
Yes.
but it is it is there because whatever the actual trauma is, it's masking what has actually happened. And you may never know what has actually happened for that person to be that way. I always believe that people are not the way that they are because that's just how they were born, right?
Right.
I think that they go through things and it makes them react a certain way. And so, to me, that's almost like a defense mechanism because of all of the things that she has going on psychologically in her mind. Maybe somebody told her she wasn't enough. Maybe she was, raped and no, she never told anybody. Or maybe, maybe your grandfather was the only man that validated her. And after he died, there was no other validation. Maybe she dealt with a lot of verbal abuse. Maybe at some point she dealt with a lot of physical abuse. So I think that there are things that she has dealt with. She's just not saying anything. And it all spews out as toxicity. And so now you have this person who has created children and she's doing these things as a mother and is showing you certain behaviors. So now low key she's teaching you what she does. She's teaching you those not so good behaviors
Because we
but for
things that we don't, the things that we some of us who are very aware of what our parents are, the things that we don't like is what we end up doing and becoming.
sometimes for some people, they become aware and then they're like, I'm going to make a conscious effort not to be that way. And for others, they're just like, they just play right into it and, become that person.
Cycle.
And yeah, it's a cycle, but then that creates a cycle of trauma though, because now you have kids, you're exposing them to the same thing. He says, so you're saying narcissism can be based on past. I believe that narcissism can be based on past trauma, very much so.
Yes.
Because it starts with something that happened that made you say, I'm going to say this instead of this. I'm going to do this instead of this. It's like what you were saying, like how leaders go through stuff. It's like they take L's and keep ticking because you've learned how to compartmentalize certain things. You've learned how, okay, well, this happened when I was a kid. I'm not going to dwell on the situation what we were talking about earlier. I'm going to forgive, let go, and move forward because I have this, and this that I have to do. So for somebody that is not a leader and is more so in what you said, a follower.
Yes, Yes, most people that are hurting always hurt other people.
Mm-hmm. And they don't even realize it. That's the other part. They don't even realize it. And their intentions might be good, but because they haven't dealt with their ish, like we was talking about earlier, they wind up hurting the very people that they did not even intend on hurting. But then you wind up traumatizing somebody else because you don't have you together. So it's all like a cycle. Like we've talked about systemic trauma. We done talked about personal trauma. We done talked about all of the craziness. This conversation has been amazing. I'm gonna need a part 3. I'm like,
no
we on part 2. We gotta have a part 3.
No trauma is greater than the next. Trauma is trauma, and that's what people need to really understand, because what may affect me may not affect you. What may affect you may not affect me.
Mm-hmm.
And so trauma is trauma, and it's going to affect us in some form or fashion, and it's going to spew over into our own personal lives and sometimes even into our work life. which is still part of our personal lives. And then we get a grip on that and acknowledge those things, that's the only way our lives will start to get better.
Yes. And like we were talking about earlier, becoming emotionally aware.
Yep.
So understanding, and this takes some work to understand what the heck has happened to you in your life. A lot of people don't self-reflect, but I think it's time that we need to do that, because it's a lot of hurt people out here. It's a lot of Black trauma happening. It's a lot. It's a lot. A lot of Negroes that got a lot of issues that need to check these issues,
pass it down,
because they're out here doing dumb stuff based on the dumb stuff that was done to them. And it wasn't dumb when it was, I mean, when they got it because they're on the receiving end of it, but like somebody else hurt them, so now they're out doing the same thing. And it's a lot of that going on, which is the reason why you have Black women talking about there are no good Black men, because there are a lot of them that have daddy wounds. And once you have that daddy wound and then you're dating, and then that man hurts you or another man hurts you, now all of a sudden all men ain't nothing. Or think about the men who have mommy issues because they didn't have a mom present in the home, and then they're dealing with, maybe she was present in the home and she was cussing him out at every turn. Then he gets in a relationship with a woman, the woman is toxic, or he's toxic, or let's just say she broke his heart, it didn't work and she broke his heart, whatever. Now he's like, all women ain't this. I'ma just use and abuse, because his first love done broke his little old heart. Now you have him going out sleeping with all of these different women, playing all these different games, doing all this different stuff. That is usually how that goes, because people are not recognizing this happened in my life. Now, okay, this happened. That's the past. Can't go back, can't change it. How do I progress? How do I move forward? How do I be the better version of me? And I know it sounds cliche, but every day that you live is an opportunity to be better than what you were yesterday. So why not take that opportunity? Because tomorrow's not promised, and the last thing that you say or do to other people is what they're going to remember. So it's like, why not be better? Why not do better? Why not want better? When you are in that positive mindset, you attract positivity to you. You will no longer have to deal with all of these negative situations. But two, understanding that the things that you have dealt with in your childhood, those are not things that you can change. But what you can change is your response to them. And like you were saying earlier, the power that it has over you, because that's a very real thing. People are still talking about things that happened to them in their childhood, and they're not really addressing what they can do differently right now. Okay, so this person was raped. Okay, and what happens from now on? What happens from this point? You've been angry all these years. You've been combative. You've been going off. You've been, fighting. Aren't you tired? And this is my thing. At this point, everybody should be tired as hell, okay? You should be tired of fighting. You should be tired of going off. You should be tired of being in the same situation, that same cycle. So when do you decide to become aware of what's going on? Say, okay, I'm triggered by X, Y, and Z. That will require you to do work to understand what your triggers are. And then say, you know what, I'm going to do the work so that I can, one, be emotionally present, know how to handle situations once I'm triggered, and then, move forward from there. So, yeah. We have been talking for a minute. It's getting late. We got to do a part 3 to this because I think that because her part got cut off, like she was going into the Black psychology, and I really wanted her to go into that because she was talking about the inequalities that happen in the medical system with us. So I actually wanted her to speak on that, but then her phone died. And it was just,
Technical difficulty.
right?
We had the BET award.
All types of stuff. So we have to do this again. I might see if she can come on Friday. If so, then we'll continue the conversation then. But I know it's getting late. It's already 12 o'clock where you are. It's almost 1 o'clock.
21.
What?
It's 11:21.
Oh, I thought you all were an hour ahead.
We're the same time.
Oh, okay. So we have been on there. Is there something else you wanted to say?
Oh no, just like no. Mm-mm.
No, because you like it's gonna go on forever. That conversation been good, but
heard it.
what you say?
I said I heard it.
So, I think we're gonna do a part 3 to this because, and both of you all can come on if you want to talk about the whole emotional aspect of it, because I know that we didn't really like dig into that part of it and the things that you all maybe have worked for you, the things that you worked through, or maybe sharing some of the things that you have, tools that you have utilized in order to get through certain situations. So I kind of want you all to talk about that. Not tonight. You don't have to talk about it tonight. He probably gave you a face like,
No.
But people need to know like what to do, because it's fine to have these conversations, but too, we got to come up with solutions, even as a culture, as to how we're going to deal with certain things that we have been exposed to and have dealt with. So I'm going to end this live so y'all can get back to your night. Thank you all for coming on. I think we're going to do a part 3 so we can talk about that Black psychology. Because I feel like we really need to have that conversation. This conversation has been really good. Were you about to say something?
No, I said that would be great.
Yeah. So I'm going to see if she can come on Friday.
Okay.
I don't know if that works for you all or if you all want to come on and talk about some solutions and stuff like that. But I'm going to end it. Thank you all for coming on. Thank you all for viewing. If you all have any requests to come on in the future, you can DM me. If you have any comments or anything, you can DM me. We'll probably be back. I'm going to try for Friday. We'll be back. I'm going to say Friday. I'm going to talk her into it. I'm going to try to talk her into it because I feel like this is so necessary. Because it's a lot of craziness going on. And so I think we need to get to the root of certain things and actually put everything like out on the table as far as the stuff that we're dealing with as a culture. So, all right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank
Love you. Bye.